Okay, all right. So we will kick off. So we all have the choice of how we want to live our life and who we surround ourselves with when we are living our lives. In 6 months, we can have 6 months of excuses or 6 months of progress. The choice is ours. So we have to be intentional about what we want to do and be intentional about actually doing it. My name is Emily Wilson. I'm the Managing Director of Future You, which is a national super boutique full service talent management business. Our service lines are executive search, specialist recruitment, interim solutions, and talent advisory. Small privately held business, 20 people all across Australia. This morning, I am absolutely delighted to have the time with Glenda Mitchell, who's one of the most dynamic individuals that I know. So Glenda was born in South Africa, has been living in Australia with her husband, has got the most incredible adventurous mindset, has run too many marathons to remember the number of. But I do know, Glenda, that you have visited over 60 countries. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah, at last count.
Yeah, and also now written a book, which I really enjoyed last week, which I'll make reference to. So thank you. Glenda and I first met in Sydney in 2013 when you were in the very big role at News Corp, heading up all of their project excellence and project management office. That was when I was recruiting for you. And I feel that we hit it off, not just in terms of a recruitment perspective, but the alignment of your adventurous nature, but really focusing on cultural fit, even though at that time you were hiring mainly contractors, doing some really interesting work. So yeah, that's over 10 years ago now.
I can't believe it.
I know, it's crazy. So we have got a huge number of people registered for this event, Glenda, and I was thinking maybe it's sort of just ticking into the new financial year or halfway through the calendar year, middle of winter, you know, with the title, How to Maintain Your Zest and Get the Best Out of You and Others, has obviously really, really resonated. So what I wanted to kick off with is you had a life-changing event that made you really reevaluate your life, and how you chose to live that. Can you just give us a bit of context around when that was and what happened, please?
Yes, Emily. So that would have been actually just thinking about us meeting in 2013. So my life-changing event was in 2016. I don't like to take it as my identity that I was a survivor of a life-changing event. But it was after just running Paris Marathon, I ended up with a 36 centimeter blood clot in my leg, and I had multiple clots in my lungs. Basically, the stats are not great in terms of people surviving that kind of bodily trauma, I guess. At the time, I didn't actually realize how serious it was. It was only when someone said to me afterwards, "Oh, you could have died," that I thought, yeah, I guess that could have happened. And it made me think, well, I was obviously here then to still continue. But what it did for me, Emily, is before then I was already adventurous. I was one of these people from as a kid, I just didn't stop. I had brothers that were older than me that I had to run faster than and kick harder than and everything else. So I always did a lot of things. But what happened post this sort of, I guess, health episode was it really made me look back on all the things I'd done and I guess reflect on them, relish in them, celebrate them, and also see of those things that I'd done, which things would I do again, which would I still do based on did I do the things because other people expected me to, because they gave me advice, because they were important, you know, what was my kind of motivation? So it didn't necessarily make me do more, but it made me think about, and your comment, it made me think about being more intentional about what I do rather than having to do absolutely everything.
Amazing. And that's what you put in the book, Kicking Out the Bucket List. So living life with intention and passion, and sharing your findings in that. And now you're a pretty well-renowned speaker in that field as well. So thank you again for giving us your time. So for those of us that haven't had a life-changing event or may actually be going through some pretty tough times now, lots of people are deep in careers, deep in caring for children, deep in caring for aging parents, having their own health problems with us and people in the family or colleagues, dealing with the increased cost rise of living. There are moments where we have to just stop and realize our lives are incredibly, incredibly full. But where do we want to spend our time to get the most joy and happiness, to bring ourselves zest, and therefore to actually lift up others? So a pretty huge topic, and I want to start off by sharing your diagram, Glenda, because how we got to this topic, you and I, was we were talking about business continuity plans, but actually doing personal continuity plans around there are only so many hours in each and every day, let alone how many hours in 6 months, and stopping and reviewing where you're at with your own investment of time. So can you talk me through these two diagrams, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Emily. So I've put on the top there of the diagram time, energy, and money, because those are probably our most scarce resources, I guess, that we have. In a week, we only have 168 hours to spend. No matter how much we try and do, that's as much as we've got, and we've got a limited amount of energy and money. So what this diagram shows is it allows us to think about each of the areas in our lives. And I've broken it, I've used 6 areas or 6 key life areas here. When I work with clients, I work up to 12. But it's, as it says on the right-hand side, it's personal, it's not best practice. So people can look at what are the key components, I guess, of their own lives. And by looking at the key components of their own lives, they can look at how much time is an easy measure, because you can actually break it up and you can say, well, in my week, how much time do I spend on my relationships? How much time do I spend at work? How much time do I spend on exercising? So the current on the left-hand side allows you to actually say, well, what is my current situation? How much time am I spending in these key life areas right this moment? And where I find people are able to actually look at these key life areas, they can assess what level of satisfaction they have with what they do in each of those key life areas. Then on the right-hand side, it's what I think would actually be better based on what my aspirations are, based on what my values are, based on what's important to those people around me. What do I think that my pie should look like? Are there areas in my life that I should be spending more time than I am now? Are there areas in my life that I need to actually focus on more? The hardest thing with this shift is, and it was funny, I was speaking to a client the other day, and it sort of seemed so obvious, but we did the current, this is where I'm currently spending my time and energy, and then she started looking at the desired and started putting numbers, and the numbers in there are loosely percentages, and she wanted to increase the time with relationships with her family. And it's like, oh, that means I need to take time away from other areas. And that was kind of a penny drop, and it seems so obvious. But by using some kind of tool like this, it puts it sort of directly in front of you that if you're going to spend more time, more energy, more money in one area, unfortunately, you're going to have to give up something in the other area.
Funny you should say that. I've just got a very good friend who has got a puppy. She's a mum. She's a full-time working mum. Her husband works. She's got 2 teenage kids. And her husband had to say to her, she was like, I'm so time poor. I'm not having time to do anything that I want to do. She's a keen runner. She loves cooking. And he mapped out how much time the puppy is taking up in a week. And he was like, your decision. You choose to get the puppy. So it's got to come out from the other areas. It's interesting.
Yeah, so we could have puppy time with puppy as one or the other. Maybe it fits under relationships, I'm not sure. But yeah, it is exactly that, because we can't actually add on to the pie. There is only so much. And that's why I've sort of used this concept of a life portfolio mix, because it is like, for those people that have got, share investments, it's like the money that you put in shares. If you're going to buy more shares, you're probably going to have to sell some. Unless you've suddenly come into more money, which at least with money you may be able to come in more money, but most times you can't. So yeah, you have to decide, is it time with husband or is it time with puppy?
Yeah, amazing. And what I love about this is that you've got this is personal, because I do feel that, we have to remove the judgment around how people choose to do that, spend and live their life. I love living a really full life. So my balance is having lots going on and ideally getting the most out of each section, but rather than having just a huge part of my life only focused in one area. But that might be not someone else's choice, and they might like a lot more time in terms of relaxation or downtime, and that's their choice. And what I like about this, and I have done it with my teams almost as part of a check-in review, is sharing what's important to you and what your own choices are, but what you're also motivated to want to achieve, and then how you're going to achieve it. So it's fantastic that it is so personal and different for everyone, and also at different points in their lives.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you've hit the nail on the head in two things there, Emily. So one of the things I've sort of tried to come across in my book, as much as it's full of adventurous stories, partly because it makes it a more interesting read, and it's partly just because that's my nature, doesn't
Yes.
mean that everybody now should go running off trying to do adventurous activities. It's a case of working out what your own passion is, what's of value to you, what are your strengths, what kind of lights your fire, what makes you happy, what makes you, and the people around you. So not only you, but what makes the people around you, those that are important to you, those that you love, what's of value to them, and focusing on those. So that's that sort of being intentional about the choices. And one of the challenges there is we're all hearing this term FOMO, the fear of missing out. And a lot of the time, people start thinking them as do these other things because somebody else is doing them, or because it's going to give them the kudos from somebody else. And they end up not spending the time on the things that are most important to them.
Yes, absolutely. I think social media plays a huge part in that for people, doesn't it? Where, people feel like everyone else is doing things that are far more exciting or interesting than their own lives, rather than focusing on truly just shutting that out and what makes them happy and the people that they choose to be around, bringing happiness and uplifting them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we see other people's highlight reel, but we see our own kind of mundane life, or maybe mundane, or what we feel is mundane because we're watching everybody else's highlight reel.
Can I say in that word mundane? Because I think it is a real superpower to make the mundane fun, or to make the mundane okay. Because often I think when people do this, there's huge goals in each area, which then is a high performing, high intensity in all parts of life, which again, great if that's where you want to be at that moment in time or for that 6-month period. But there surely must be elements where there's got to be a calmness, and there's got to be a slight element of I can't think of another word now, but mundane. Do you know what I'm trying to say, or does that not make sense?
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I mean, one word, I guess one way we could look at it is contentment. that there's a
Yes.
time where we're content with where we're
Yeah.
at, for whatever reason. Well, actually, interesting you say that, because one of the clients I've been working with recently, so we looked at her current life portfolio mix, and then she started playing around with a desired life portfolio mix. And she's in this difficult stage where she's a very high achiever. She wants to be successful from a career perspective, but at the moment she's got 3 young children, and she really wants to make an impact on the world. And it became a, a challenge. She was this disconnect between her current and her desired. But what she realized is that for this, and use your window of 6 months, that actually in this season, she was going to choose to be content with her current life portfolio mix, recognizing that that wasn't going to be the portfolio mix for the rest of her life. It was just for the next season. And actually, she was so much happier once she became content with that, because she could be comfortable and content. Yeah. But she could do it differently later. It wasn't tying her into being like that for the rest of her life.
Yeah, true. And also using that period of contentment to put steps in place so that in 6 months' time, when she might have, we talk about have more space to take on a new opportunity, because a new opportunity, whether it's in a career or a hobby or a relationship, definitely takes up space and time. But putting things in place now in the next 6 months to get you in a position of being able to take that new opportunity on, whether it's, getting in front of a network, whether it's, having a coffee with someone new once a week, whether it's doing your resume or LinkedIn profile as best you can. So actually breaking it down so that in 6 months you're able to, to achieve those things or move into that new desired shift.
Absolutely, because there's no use having the desired one set. I mean, I don't think we're going to have too many people who are about to necessarily retire in the audience now, but that's often a major transition. And what I see is people want to go into retirement, or even when they go to when their children go to school, and they want to start doing something new, but they're not fit enough, they don't have the skills, and they lost because they can't go and do the activities that they wanted to do when their children have gone off to school, because they haven't been prepared for that. So it doesn't mean they still can't do it, but they've got a longer transition. So the more we can actually think to the future and think about almost multiple desired states, the easier it is to make sure we skill ourselves up and we prepare ourselves for that next state, even if we're not actually making those changes now.
Yeah. So in each of these sectors, to use the tool to have a moment of reflection, it's to look at the current space and where you invest your time, and also what you're doing with your time and who you're doing it with, what the desired model is, and then putting a plan in place to help you achieve it in 6 months. Is that the idea?
Yeah, or whatever the period that you've defined is. And because we're talking 6 months, that makes sense. The brain seems to manage to we often talk about 5-year plans, and we don't seem to be able to do that as easily. Not to say we don't have the big picture 5 years, but 6 months seems to be something we can cope with. So if we can have plans to get us so specific steps, specific activities that we can do, and whether it be because we're wanting to improve our health, we may actually decide to go and join the gym. So anything like that to get us to the new desired state. So those would be some of the things that we need to do. And both in terms of planning out the activities that we're wanting to do or the steps that we need to do. But what I also find is getting people around us that will help us. So whether it be to provide advice, whether it's to support us, whether it's to be accountable. And this is where I think in organizations, having these conversations with our peers and also with managers, with staff, with whoever's around can help, because we become aware of what the other people around us are trying to achieve, and we can actually help each other do it.
I love that. I love that. And when I looked at this myself, I mean, I'm really proud that I feel like I have a really diverse set of relationships. And I absolutely love that because people challenge the way I think. They bring different thoughts to me that I wouldn't think of myself. And when I look at this, and whether it's, from a business perspective, relationship, I think for me, all relationships are the same. They're built on trust and they're built on partnerships. But there are people who I would hang out or spend time with that help me genuinely more on the spiritual side, or there are friends or people that I hang out with that help me more on the hobby side, or there are mentors that I have on the career side. So it's also, I think, recognizing what diverse set of people you have to bring ideas and support you through the desired state as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for some people, they will rely on people. And because you're such a people person, that makes absolute sense to me. Some other people will rely more on process. So what if you would like to go on to the other slides,
Yes,
sorry,
thank
Emily,
you.
you've got, from a process perspective, what I find some people need and find useful is this. So passion would be that core of, it's almost that new pie. So what does the new pie or desired state want to look like? And then actually going through and actively going through those rings around the circle. So purging, getting rid of those things in your life, because we said if you're going to add on, if you're going to spend more time in your relationship, you're going to have to give up some other things. So if you're going to do the puppy, you're going to have to give up some other things. So what are you going to get rid of? So what are things that you're going to purge from your life? What are
Yes.
you going to prioritize? What are you going to park so that you're going to do later? What are some things that you're going to get, that you need to actually plan for? So then you're going to put in your active steps, maybe go and join the gym. And then over the next 6 months, now you've actually got to do it. So you've done all your purging and planning and prioritizing. So persevering and seeing it through. And the last one that I've actually got on there, my final P, is the party. And this is
Like
where,
that. My eyes go straight to that one.
well, to me, actually, it is the beginning and the end of everything. So
Mm,
party is something that keeps most people motivated. So if
yes.
we can look back both at our past and actually identify what our major achievements on, what's given us a buzz in the past, it's such a good way of motivating us into the future. And then as we're doing new things, so over the next 6 months, instead of in 6 months' time looking back and saying, have we done it? And then realizing we haven't done it. If we find little milestones along the way and actually celebrate our successes and celebrate the successes of those around us, it's amazing. It's such a motivational tool.
Yeah, the small things that happen every day. I mean, I'm the world's worst for certainly not having a plan any more far out than 6 months. Never have, never have. And I really respect people that say in 2 years' time, I want to be a CEO, or in 2 years' time, I want to be the best slalom skier that I can be. But I truly believe in getting the most out of absolutely every day, so getting up and going for a walk at 5:30 in the morning. So, that's the time of the day when nothing's gone wrong. You've got the time, being present, but even having the spontaneity, because in your book, what I love, Glenda, it's like you cannot just plan, because you can miss opportunities, you can miss moments of joy, which can be observations of things around you or observations of a conversation you've had time for. So it's great to have this, but also to still try and have that spontaneity in life.
Yeah, yeah. And some people are always going to be more spontaneous than others, but I go with the Nike. I like this one before Nike ever came across it, just do it. And to be honest, Emily, that was actually the original reason behind my book, and why it was called Kicking Out the Bucket List, was essentially saying, stop making a list, just get out there and doing it. Because I found that so many people would hear about my climbing up the mountain or what I'd done and say, oh, I'm going to put that on my bucket list. And it just drove me nuts, because everybody kept building up this bucket list of things they were going to do in the future. Firstly, things that they weren't passionate about. Secondly, that they never got to do because they were so busy listing them. So I'm with you. It's like sometimes you just got to get up and just go and do it, or make a decision not to do it, whichever way you go, but just get on with it.
Love it. You've answered the one question, actually, is someone in the team, and I won't name names, but, how can I get up at 5:30 in the morning and, to do the exercise? And you've just said, just do it. And my thing is, when that alarm goes off, I will literally give myself 5 seconds. I count to 5. And then my eldest teenage son taught me the words, send it. So whenever you're in a situation and you're going, shall I, shan't I just go, just send it, just get up and go, but yeah, sometimes much easier said than done.
Yeah, I've never heard that, so just send it. I'm going to remember that. Well, the snooze button on, I don't know if they exist anymore, I'm probably showing my age, but the snooze button on alarm clock.
It does.
I've never understood people pressing a snooze button.
No, me neither.
Set the alarm for the time you have to wake up, and
but
then
we
go
have the
for
same
it.
mindset. I know. I would never do that. For me, that's torture. So even if it's the last minute, I'm never late or I'm never early. I would leave it to the last, but I would get up the first instance. But I don't know. Everyone's different, aren't they? So the idea to use this it's a life tool, not just a career tool. I mean, rightly or wrongly, everyone has to work. The cost of living is high. We should be doing something that we are really good at, that we are adding values to other people and making us feel good about ourselves. And I mean, in Future You, it's, the enabling personal career growth to enable businesses to grow. But this tool could be used from an HR perspective as part of a check-in, because we're bringing the whole person to work. We are all one human. So how people are thinking and feeling often is how they then show up to perform in their job, isn't it? So this is a great tool that can be used.
Absolutely. I mean, you've summed it up. When you get a person to work, you do get a whole person. You don't just get a resource or a worker. And we all bring our whole selves, and we get the benefit of our whole selves being at work, and sometimes not necessarily the benefit. So I think the more we can have conversations about what people are expecting and what people are looking for, and sometimes what people at different stages of their lives are focused on, because somebody who's just starting out as 20 is going to be different to someone who's got 3 children, is someone to be different to somebody who's 5 years from retirement. Their pie is not going to look the same. So having an awareness of where they're at and what they're looking to do can only help that person maximize their life and also get the organization to get the most out of that person.
Yeah, okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Any other words of wisdom that you would like to share on this topic, Glenda, please?
Oh, don't get me started again. I think it all comes back to the summary at the beginning. I'm just keen for people to be really intentional about what they choose to do, not trying to do what everybody else does, but about choosing what they do. And then just getting up and getting on and doing it and not putting it on a list.
Yeah, and I love your word, living life with passion. And I was reading a novel actually, and it was saying that passion is one of the, there's a lot of emotions that are earthly emotions day to day, and passion is actually one that's sky high, not getting too spiritual, but it's actually supposed to be one of the emotions that are out in the universe. And I think you've got to find and bring your own passion to what you're doing. Like it's your own sense of responsibility, isn't it? You can't find it. You bring it, and it comes from yourself, I believe.
Yeah, it's interesting because we said about keeping zest, and it's almost like we look for zest outside of ourselves, but actually we bring that zest and we make our own choice as to whether we want to jump out of bed at 5:30 in the morning or whether we press the snooze button.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that comes from thinking, if you're having a bad day, what are you going to do that is going to make you feel good? If something's not going well at work, what do you do? I know what I do, and you do it, or if something's not going well on the weekend, what do you do to pick yourself up, to help bring that passion and zest through? And then it all filters out to everything else, hopefully, anyway.
It does.
Thank you so much. So everyone, we will send out the recording and the notes, the presentation for Glenda. I highly recommend the book, Kicking Out the Bucket List. Glenda is a fabulous coach and has a really impressive corporate career, and certainly spends her time coaching people around the topics that we've discussed this morning. So we'll send out the contact details as well. So if there's anything else that we can do to assist, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you very much for everyone giving us their time this morning. Thank you so much, Glenda.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.